This is the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast. I'm Lisa Salisbury, and this is episode 114, Back to Basics, the 6 Essentials for Long-Term Health and Weight Loss. Welcome to Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well, the podcast for women who want to lose weight, but are tired of counting and calculating all the food. I'm your host, Lisa Salisbury. I'm a certified health and weight loss coach and life coach, and most importantly, a recovered chronic dieter. I'll teach you to figure out why you are eating when you aren't hungry instead of worrying so much about what you are eating. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I have a sort of revamped episode from something I talked to you about a year and a half ago. So I think either you are new to the podcast and you're going to love this episode, or it's been a while if you're a diehard fan, and it's always good to get a review of these 6 essentials. So let's cut through the noise. There is no single thing that will magically transform your health overnight. No one-size-fits-all solution. From the quick fixes to the trendy diets, many of us have fallen into the trap of looking for that secret key. But the truth is, it's never just one thing. It's about mastering a few simple basics and doing these consistently. And yes, it's boring. I'm so sorry, but weight loss just isn't sexy when you do it the old-fashioned way, when you do it with health in mind, when you do it without looking for the next quick thing. So today, I want to shift your focus back to these fundamentals, the building blocks that will make the biggest difference in your health and weight loss journey. We're not talking tiny tweaks or short-lived cleanses here. We're talking about the 6 core practices that, when done regularly, will truly move the dial on your overall well-being. Once these are in place, you'll have the foundation needed for long-term success. Read maintenance, right? Because it's not just about weight loss, it's about maintaining that weight loss. And that is what is considered long-term success. You may have seen posts and just articles and whatnot recently about how to, say, not spike your blood glucose while eating certain meals, or maybe certain greens powders being touted as the be-all, end-all of health. Here's the thing. Unless you have the 6 basics I'm going to talk about today in line, none of those other things matter. Seriously, no supplement, no food combination, no belly blaster tea will make a difference if you don't have these foundations in place. It's not so much eat less and move more, but it's the basics that are more foundational to overall health and wellness that will in fact help you shed excess weight if you have weight to lose. Once you are doing these 6 essential habits 80 to 90% of the time, then if you want to add in something more nuanced, go right ahead. But like they say, you can't outrun a bad diet. Really, you can't out-supplement, you can't out-greens powder, you can't out-hack these basics. All right, number 1 is sleep. Women, you need 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. That means that you need to give yourself at least 7.5 hours of sleep opportunity if your needs are on the lower end. For me, I know I need 8 hours to function at my best, which means I really need to be in bed for 8.5 hours. If you're not familiar with sleep opportunity, it has to do with your sleep efficiency. So sleep efficiency is the amount of time you spend sleeping divided by the amount of time you were in bed. You want to aim for 85 to 95% sleep efficiency, which means if you have 15 to 30 minutes on either end of your sleep to be kind of resting, either trying to fall asleep or the waking time in the morning, essentially sleep opportunity is the amount of time you are spending in bed, with sleep being the goal. There are thousands of reasons why sleep is important. I read the book Why We Sleep several years ago. I probably need to read it again because it was super impactful. The very first interview I ever even did on the podcast was with a sleep coach. I have several episodes dedicated strictly to sleep. Earlier this year, I interviewed a board-certified sleep specialist. That's Dr. Bajoy John, if you want to listen to that. His book is called Nobody's Sleeping, The 7 Proven Sleep Strategies. And that's a great episode if you need more on this topic. But truly, there are too many benefits to list here. So Just briefly, I'll mention the ones related to our weight loss efforts. There are hormonal impacts to our ghrelin, leptin, and insulin, which are the main hunger hormones, and those are impacted by lower sleep or poor sleep quality. But the main thing you're really going to notice is that your cravings are going to increase, specifically for highly processed foods that are higher in sugar and processed flour. You're going to be less emotionally regulated as well, because when you lack sleep, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex don't talk to each other very well throughout the day. So essentially, you have less capacity to follow through with your plan and intentions. Now, there's a couple caveats to this sleep section because I know it can be really emotional as well. For those of you that are new moms or in that toddler mom phase, just give yourself the grace that you deserve. I know you're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours. I know that this is not the time for you. Do your best. It will come. For those of you in the midlife time where you think, great, now I have teenagers that are sleeping in and the perimenopause keeps you from sleeping at all, the hot flashes, the night sweats. Again, give yourself grace. Figure out some things that work for you. A couple of things that have helped me are, number one, first and foremost, is getting on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I am no expert, nor am I a doctor, so I would just encourage you to ask your doctor if you are a candidate. It has dramatically helped my sleep. Our second core principle is protein. I have been talking more lately on the podcast about specifically what your plate should look like. I've been talking about fiber and added sugars too, but without a doubt, the first and foremost pillar of nutrition you need to get down is every meal should include a hefty portion of protein. Prioritizing protein in your day is going to balance your hunger as well as your hormones, and not just your hunger hormones, but your female hormones as well. You will find yourself getting hungry less often when you increase your protein intake. You'll also notice your sugar cravings go down when you are getting adequate protein. If you've listened to my earlier episode on NEAT, N-E-A-T, and energy expenditure, you'll remember that protein has a high thermic effect. It takes more energy to digest. This means you stay full longer and your body burns more calories just breaking it down. So you want to aim for 25 to 40 grams per meal. If you're eating 3 meals a day, as I typically recommend that you do, getting 25 to 40 grams per meal gives you 75 to 120 grams per day. You really don't need to weigh and measure your protein though. If you were to eat 4 ounces of chicken, for example, that's about a half a chicken breast or a generous palm of your hand. A palm is typically 3 ounces, so maybe up to the first knuckle. So that's why I say a generous palm is about 4 ounces. So that is going to give you 30 grams of protein. If you were to include that much protein 3 times a day, you would be in a great range. If you are in a weight loss phase, you could do even more. Now, I want to add a caveat here. A lot of times people say, I can't get that much protein in and stay within like my calorie goals if you're counting calories or just staying within your intake goals. If we're going to talk about energy, which is the calories, it's the measurement of the energy in the food, protein is 4 calories per gram. So if you're aiming for 100 grams of protein per day, that is only 400 calories. It is not that much volume of energy to be able to include that much protein in your day. So I really want you to think about it like, oh gosh, 100 grams, that sounds like a lot of protein, like sounds like a lot of volume. But when you break it down and go, oh, that's really only 400 calories worth of food, it's surprising how easy it is to fit that in. I'd like for you also to focus on complete sources of protein, which means they have all 9 of the essential amino acids, which are the building blocks of your body. So these complete sources of protein include meat, fish, eggs, dairy, soy like tofu, tempeh, or soy milk, quinoa, buckwheat, and hemp and chia seeds. I always recommend getting your protein from animal sources first because it's just so much more nutrient dense and it's more bioavailable, which means you absorb it better. Also, it's just really hard to get enough protein from other sources. Chia seeds, for example, pack a punch for what they are, but in 2 tablespoons, you're getting just 5 grams of protein. You would have to eat 3/4 of a cup of chia seeds to get 30 grams of protein, like in that half a chicken breast. It's just not practical. Just for reference too, so you can kind of visualize this, 2 tablespoons of chia seeds is the amount in a typical recipe for chia seed pudding that then, balloons up. They're like little sponges, so they expand. So you're not measuring the expanded chia seeds in 3/4 of a cup. You would be measuring for protein based on the dry seeds. So things like quinoa and chia seeds are definitely supplementary to your main animal sources. Remember also that eggs only have about 7 grams of protein per egg. So if you typically have 2 in one serving, you'll want to eat those in conjunction with another protein source as well, like a piece of turkey sausage or some Greek yogurt, something like that. Like I said, I don't want you going out and weighing and measuring all your protein from here on out and forever. Just think about making it a priority in your meals, and you'll likely be doing enough, especially to get started. Once you have the protein down, or maybe if you're already doing great with protein because you've been listening to me and you've been focusing on that, the next nutritional building block I'd love for you to tackle would be fiber. So I'm not going to get into that as a foundation today, but if you're like, I've got protein, I'm already doing that, then I want you to look at your fiber. Aim for at least 25 grams of fiber per day. All right, number 3 on our basics is eating in the correct energy balance. So this is where people again want to go out and weigh and measure and track all their food. And you can do that if it's right for you. I don't do that anymore because it did make me too anxious after years and years of tracking, but I don't regret what I learned doing it. So it is a useful exercise if you've never done it for a limited period of time, like say 2 to 4 weeks. Just as a learning exercise, counting calories and weighing and measuring your food was never meant to be the way we want to live every day for the rest of our lives. So if you aren't going to weigh and track and measure, which is absolutely fine, I don't encourage that, but you'll know if you're in the correct amount of food or eating in the correct energy balance for you if you are waiting for hunger, waiting to get at least a -3 on the hunger scale before beginning to eat, and then eating just to a +3. We're eating just to enough. Remember, this is not full. This is just to enough. Using tools like the hunger scale can really help you naturally regulate how much food your body really needs. You can expect to lose about 1/2 to 1 pound per week with this method. Not every week, because weight loss isn't linear, but overall. If you're wondering if you're eating in the right amount, ask yourself, could I take a 10-minute walk after this meal without feeling uncomfortable? If the answer is yes, you're probably hitting that enough goal. Another way you know if you're eating in the correct energy balance for you is if the scale is moving in the direction you want it to, right? I know a lot of people hate to use the scale and hate to weigh themselves, so you can see if the same pair of jeans still fit. If you are maintaining your current weight, you are eating in the energy balance that maintains that weight. If you want to reduce your weight and use some onboard fat stores for energy, you'll need to reduce the energy you're bringing on board, reduce your intake. I know that sounds like I'm getting back to eat less, move more, but the truth is that the laws of thermodynamics will apply. Whether you have hormone issues, whether you are not sleeping well, we still have to eat in the correct energy balance. So there's a couple ways that we can sort of reduce our intake that are pretty easy. Number 1, just try leaving a few bites behind at every meal this week and see how you feel. This can be a good test too to see if you're eating past enough as well. You may be eating what you're used to eating and not realizing that you're getting to be past enough. When you test it out by leaving a few bites behind, you'll be eliminating some energy you typically would bring on board without a lot of effort. Another fairly easy way to reduce your intake is to stop snacking between meals. Stop grabbing things on your way through the kitchen. Stop grazing every time you go to fill up your water. Another place you can stop snacking is probably after dinner. This is rarely a time you're actually physically hungry, so take a look at that time and see if this is an easy way to reduce your intake. All right, number 4, I'm all about doing the exercise you love, but we can't ignore the massive benefits of strength training. Okay, so strength training is our fourth basic. Whether you're trying to lose weight or simply stay healthy, building muscle is essential for maintaining a high quality of life as you age. A New York Times article highlighted a fascinating study showing that strength training just twice a week can reduce mortality risk by 40%. Here's what it said. After adjusting for factors such as age, gender, income, education, marital status, and whether they had chronic conditions such as diabetes, heart disease, or cancer, researchers found that people who engaged in 1 hour of moderate to vigorous aerobic activity a week had a 15% lower mortality risk. Mortality risk was 27% lower for those who did 3 hours a week. But those who also took part in 1 to 2 strength training sessions per week had an even lower mortality risk, a full 40% lower than those who didn't exercise at all. This was roughly the difference between a non-smoker and someone with a half a pack a day habit. I thought that was absolutely amazing, that the difference between adding in strength training equaled the difference between being a smoker and not being a smoker. So the benefits just really go well beyond weight loss with strength training. It improves bone density, balance, coordination, reduces the risk of injury, and even boosts your mental health. It's the secret sauce to staying strong and functional well into your later years. So aerobic exercise is protective, but adding in strength training has a significant impact. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the study showed just 24% of participants did regular strength training, as opposed to 63% who said they did aerobic workouts. So we're doing fairly well. More than half, the majority are doing aerobic exercise, but only 24% are doing the strength training. It's just not as common, which is why it needs to be repeated over and over and over that we need to be doing it more. Most of us women have been afraid of weights or just not sure what to do. We've been cardio bunnies and mostly told, oh, don't lift weights, you'll get bulky. I guarantee you won't. You won't. Ultimately, I think this quote from the New York Times article sums it up nicely. It was from Dr. Bruce Moseley. He said, "You will function at a much higher level for longer if you have good muscle strength." All right, number 5 is walking. Let's talk about walking. This is separate from your dedicated workouts. Walking is about staying active throughout the day. Simple things like walking after meals or just increasing your step count can make a big difference. Remember that episode on NEAT, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis? 15% of your daily energy comes from these small, non-exercise activities. If you've got a fitness tracker, look at your 7-day average and try increasing your steps by just 100 to 200 per day. Start small and watch your activity level gradually increase over time. The fact is, women who walk more have an easier time burning fat. Period. That's just the truth. I'm not going to give you a step count number to shoot for since I don't know where you are starting, because on this one, I want you to just aim for an increase from wherever you are. Okay, just try to prioritize movement and work on increasing a little each week. Something that I've added, and I've mentioned it 1,000 times, but is that after dinner walk. I added this about a year ago and I have really enjoyed it. I don't get out every single day, but more days than not, I take our dog on a little after dinner, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes if we're really feeling energetic, and it's really helped to increase my step count. All right, lastly, number 6 is stress and mind management. This is where we talk nice to ourselves. Whatever works for you in this department that truly decreases your stress, so it could be meditation, writing in a gratitude journal, doing coaching models on yourself, getting coached by someone like me, talking on the phone to your best friend, having committed sex with your partner, yoga, hot shower or bath, cold plunge if you're into that, or hot tubs. Yay, that's me. Taking long walks. There's 1,000 ways to truly decrease your stress, and I guarantee you that none of them include eating an entire tub of ice cream. Really get honest with yourself about what are true pleasures and stress relievers in your life and do more of those. Do less of the false pleasures like overeating or overdrinking or over consuming social media, the continuous scroll, thinking that this is going to solve for your stress. I know this can be a difficult one for women in the midlife time. We are going every which way, often with little kids and then teenagers and sometimes even aging parents, and then careers and social life. And the idea of taking something off your plate just goes out the window, or even worse, adding something. You want me to add a gratitude journal? But the way you manage all this stress has a huge impact on your overall health. So I encourage you to give it some serious thought before jumping into another fad diet that's only going to spike your stress and leave you feeling defeated again in 6 weeks. Okay, just to recap that list, we talked about sleep, prioritizing protein, eating the correct balance of energy for yourself, strength training added to your aerobic training, walking, and stress management. These are your core priorities, your essentials when it comes to weight loss and healthy living. Once you are doing these things, then we can dial in smaller nuances in your diet or maybe in your supplement routine. You'll notice that each of these fall under my main pillars of the podcast. Eat well includes the prioritizing protein and eating in the right energy balance for yourself. Think well includes the stress and mind management. And live well includes the sleep, strength training, and walking. I know it can be hard to get started even when I'm giving you just the basics here. So if you just need one first step to do, go download my free go-to meals guide. This will help you dial in some of your basic meals so you aren't constantly trying to come up with new things to eat to keep you on track. I give you some examples of my go-to meals and a few recipes as well, and then a blank worksheet for you to come up with what works best for you, for your family, and your schedule. Link is in the show notes. Lastly, if you don't follow me on Instagram, which I mean, why not? But you may not know that this week is my birthday. If you want to know what I really, really would love to get for my birthday, it's a few more reviews for the podcast. So if you want to give me a little treat and help more people discover the podcast, I'd love to get your feedback. Here's how you can do it. If you're on Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom of the show page, tap the stars to rate, and then write a few words about what you enjoy. If you're on Spotify, just tap the star icon, it's the 5th one over, to rate the show. Your support means the world to me, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you listeners. Have a great week, and thanks for listening to the Eat Well, Think Well, Live Well podcast.